Have you ever promised yourself you'd change, made a big plan, felt excited for 3 days, and then quietly gave up? Maybe you said, "This year I'll get fit," but the gym membership expired unused. Maybe you wanted to read more, bought 10 books, but they're gathering dust. Or maybe you've set the same goal 5 years in a row, and every year, it ends the same way, with disappointment and excuses. If that cycle feels familiar, if you're tired of big promises and small results, then this story will change how you think about goals forever. Because once there was a man who tried to transform his entire life in 1 week and failed, until he learned a simple principle. You don't need to change your life. You just need to change by 1%. Stay with me until the end. In a bustling city, in an ordinary apartment on the 7th floor, lived a 32-year-old accountant named David. David was intelligent, hardworking, and deeply frustrated with himself. Not because he was lazy, but because every time he tried to improve his life, he failed in the exact same way. On January 1st, David would wake up with fire in his chest. "This is my year," he'd say. He'd write an ambitious list. Exercise every day, 1 hour minimum. Read 50 pages before bed. Learn Spanish for 45 minutes. Wake up at 5 a.m. Eat only healthy food. Meditate 30 minutes daily. For 3 days, he'd do everything. He'd feel invincible. His co-workers would ask, "David, what's changed?" He'd smile confidently. "I'm becoming the best version of myself." But by day 4, his body ached from exercise. By day 5, he was exhausted from waking at 5 a.m. By day 6, he skipped one habit, then another. By week 2, he was back to his old routine, feeling worse than before. Not just because he'd failed, but because he'd proven to himself, once again, that he couldn't change. His younger sister Emma would visit and see the unused gym equipment, the untouched Spanish book, the abandoned meditation cushion. She'd ask gently, "David, why do you always do this? Why not start smaller?" But David would shake his head. "Emma, small changes don't matter. If I'm going to change, I need to change everything. All or nothing." What David didn't realize was that his all-or-nothing mindset was exactly what kept him stuck. He'd tried this pattern 12 times over 6 years, 12 New Year's resolutions, 12 failures, 12 cycles of hope and shame. He whispered to himself late at night, staring at his reflection. What if I'm just not the kind of person who can change? One autumn evening, David received an invitation that made his stomach tighten, his 10-year university reunion. He almost didn't go, but something made him walk into that hotel ballroom, carrying the weight of a decade of unfulfilled promises. And there he saw them, his former classmates. Some had started successful businesses. Others had traveled to 30 countries. One friend had written a book. Another had run 3 marathons. David stood in the corner, holding a glass of water, answering the same question over and over. "So David, what have you been up to?" He smiled weakly and said, "Oh, working, staying busy." But inside, his mind screamed, "I've been trying to change for 10 years, and I'm exactly where I started." Then he saw Marcus. Marcus had been the laziest student in their class, late to every lecture, barely passing exams, no ambition visible to anyone. But now, Marcus looked different, healthy, confident, energized. David couldn't help himself. "Marcus, you look incredible. What happened?" Marcus smiled. "I started getting 1% better every day." David frowned. 1%? That's nothing? That wouldn't change anything. Marcus's smile deepened. That's exactly what I thought too, until someone showed me the math. Before David could respond, Marcus handed him a business card. There's someone I want you to meet. Coach Helen. She changed my life. If you're tired of feeling stuck, go see her. Tell her I sent you. That night, David lay in bed, staring at the card. Part of him wanted to throw it away. Another false hope, another disappointment waiting to happen. But a quieter voice whispered, "What if this time is different?" The next morning, he made the call. Coach Helen's office was nothing like David expected. No motivational posters, no hustle slogans, just a simple desk, 2 chairs, and a whiteboard. Helen was a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a calm presence. She listened as David explained his pattern. Big goals, brief success, inevitable failure, crushing shame. When he finished, she nodded slowly. David, you're not lazy, you're not weak, you're just using the wrong strategy. She walked to the whiteboard and drew a simple chart. Let me show you something that will change how you see improvement forever. She wrote, 1.01 to the power of 365 equals 37.8. 0.99 to the power of 365 equals 0.03. David stared, confused. I don't understand. Helen smiled. If you get 1% better every single day for 1 year, you don't improve by 1%. You don't even improve by 365%. You improve by 3,700%. You become 37 times better. She tapped the board. But if you get 1% worse every day, skipping workouts, eating poorly, wasting time, you don't decline by 1%. You decline by 97%. You almost disappear. David felt something shift in his mind. The difference between who you are and who you could be isn't one giant leap. It's 365 tiny steps. Helen sat back down. David, you keep trying to run a marathon when you've never jogged around the block. Your goals aren't the problem. Your approach is. She pulled out a simple notebook. Here's what I want you to do. Forget everything on your list except one habit. Just one. What's the smallest version of the change you want? David thought, I want to exercise. Smaller. I want to jog. Smaller. David paused. I want to put on running shoes. Helen smiled. Perfect. For the next week, every morning, you will put on your running shoes. That's it. You don't have to run. You don't have to go outside. Just put on the shoes. David almost laughed. That's ridiculous. That won't accomplish anything. Helen's expression became serious. David, you've been trying to become a different person overnight. That's why you always fail. But identity change doesn't happen in one day. It happens through repetition of tiny behaviors. She leaned forward. You don't need to be the person who runs 5 miles. You need to become the person who puts on running shoes. Because once you're that person, running becomes inevitable. 1 week, 7 days. Put on running shoes every morning. Nothing more. Can you do that? David felt something strange. Hope without pressure. This goal wasn't intimidating. It was almost embarrassingly small. Yes, he said. I can do that, Helen wrote in her notebook. Good. Because small changes seem like they don't matter until they compound. That's when everything changes. The next morning, David set his alarm. When it rang, he didn't jump out of bed excited. He felt nothing, but he'd made a promise. He put on his running shoes. Then he sat on the couch and drank coffee. That was day 1. Day 2, put on running shoes, sat on the couch. Day 3, put on running shoes. Walked to the door, went back inside. His sister Emma visited on day 4. David, are you going running? No, he said, lacing his shoes. I'm just putting on my shoes. She looked confused, but David didn't explain. Day 5, put on running shoes. Walked outside, stood on the sidewalk for 30 seconds, went back inside. On day 6, something strange happened. David put on his shoes, walked outside, and his legs started moving. Not because he forced himself, but because standing still felt awkward now. He jogged for 2 minutes, walked back, took off his shoes. He'd run. Week 2, Coach Helen asked, how's it going? I've put on my shoes every day. Sometimes I run now. Not long, just a little. Perfect, she said. Don't add anything yet. Just keep this one habit. Weeks passed. The pattern became automatic. Shoes on, door open, feet moving. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 15. 1 month in, David's co-worker asked, are you a runner now? David paused. Was he? He still only ran 15 minutes. That wasn't much, but then he realized. He'd run 28 days in a row. He'd never done anything for 28 days straight. Yeah, he said, surprising himself. I guess I am. That's when Coach Helen added the second habit. You're a runner now. Your identity has changed. What's the next 1%? David chose. Read for 10 minutes before bed. Just 10 minutes, 1 page if that's all he managed. Then a third habit. Spanish for 5 minutes daily, not 45, 5. 6 months later, David had run 180 days in a row, now doing 30 minutes daily. Read 15 books, 10 minutes every night adds up. Completed 2 beginner Spanish courses. Added healthy breakfast, another small habit. Started journaling, 5 minutes daily. He wasn't doing everything. He was doing 5 small things consistently. His sister Emma visited again. She stopped in the doorway, staring. David, you look different. He smiled, 1% different, every day. No, she said, you look like a completely different person. David checked the mirror. She was right. But the change had been so gradual, he hadn't noticed it happening. That's how transformation works. Invisible until suddenly, it's undeniable. 1 year after that painful reunion, David returned to the same hotel ballroom. This time, people didn't ask, what have you been up to? They asked, David, how did you do it? You look incredible. What's your secret? David smiled, remembering Marcus's words. I got 1% better every day. Some people nodded politely, not understanding. But a few, the ones who were tired of failing, leaned in closer. What does that actually mean? And David explained. About Coach Helen, about the running shoes, about choosing one tiny habit, about identity change through repetition. One woman said, but I want to change so much. How do I know where to start? David pulled out his notebook, a habit he'd learned from Helen. Start with the smallest version of whatever you want. If you want to write a book, write 1 sentence daily. If you want to get fit, put on workout clothes. If you want to learn guitar, pick it up for 2 minutes. That seems too small to matter. That's what I thought, David said, but ask yourself, would you rather do something small every day or something huge once and then never again? My friend, David's story is your story. It's my story. It's every person who's ever wanted to change but felt overwhelmed by the size of the goal. Here's the truth that changes everything. You don't have to transform your life in 1 day. You just have to improve by 1%. Just 1%. But you have to do it every single day. Remember these 3 principles. First, Small habits compound. That 1% seems invisible today, but in 6 months, a year, you'll be unrecognizable. Second, identity beats motivation. You don't need to run marathons. You need to become the person who puts on running shoes. The action follows the identity. Third, never break the chain. Missing 1 day cuts the compound effect. 2 days resets it. Consistency is everything. So here's your challenge, starting today. Choose one habit, just one. The smallest version of something you want to change. So small it feels almost embarrassing. Then do it every single day for 30 days. Don't expand it. Don't add more. Just prove to yourself that you can keep one tiny promise. Because the person who can keep one promise can keep any promise. And that 1% improvement, in 1 year, you'll be 37 times better. If this story inspired you to finally start that change you've been delaying, give this video a like so more people can discover the 1% rule. Share it with someone who's stuck in the all or nothing trap. And drop a comment right now. What's your one habit? What's the 1% you're committing to today? Let's hold each other accountable. I'll be reading every single comment. Until next time, remember, you don't need to change your life overnight. You just need to get 1% better than yesterday.